Good morning, students. Today we will discuss about the pollinators. Okay. So in the last class we had studied about pollination by wind and pollination by water. So today we will talk about the pollination by animals, which is also known as the zoophily. Zoophily, that means pollination by animals. Okay, so see here, pollination by animals. Here, a wide range of pollination acting as an pollinating agents. A wide range of animals are acting as an what? That is the pollinating agents. What are that animals which are acting as an pollinators or pollinating agents? So the animals are such as bees, butterflies, birds, then ants, then squirrels, rodents or rats. Okay, then except these, there will be moths, wasps, snails. Okay, all this will act as an among hummingbirds, then sunbirds, and some of the bats. Bats are also acting as an pollinator agents. So even larger animals, these all are the smaller animals. Except these, some of the larger animals such as the lemurs, monkeys. Some of the larger animals such as lemurs, they also involve in what? In the lemurs and reptiles such as lizard, chameleon. These all are what? Animals which are acting as a pollinating agents. Okay. Then lizard also there will be several types such as garden lizard and all. They all are acting as a pollinating agents. Okay. So here these pollinating agents, such as majority of the flowering plants will undergo into the pollination, that is by the animals. Okay, such as bees, flies and all what I had told. Here these are all what? All are pollinating agents. So here among the animal insects, that is particularly the bees. Okay, bees means houseflies and all. So particularly the bees are the dominant biotic pollinating agents. They most commonly, which animal or in majority of the which animal which are acting as a pollinating agent means that is the bees. So here the even larger animals such as lemur, rodents, then squirrels, then lizard, they all are involved in what? They all are. See, in lizard also there are two types of lizard which are undergoing into the pollination. That is the garden lizard, and one more lizard is there. The name of that lizard is gecko lizard. Gecko lizard. Okay, so all are reported as an pollinators of their different animals. So here majority of the insect pollinated plants or insect pollinated flowers. See, majority of the flowering plants are pollinating by what? By the insects. So what characters should be there? What adaptation should be there in a flower for pollination by these bees or the insects? So let's see here. Majority of insect pollinated flowers are insect pollinated flowers should be Here there are certain adaptation. It should be larger. Their size should be large, then colorful, so that the animals or the bees or the insects should attract towards that flower. Okay, colorful, fragrant. It gives a smell due to which they are going to attract towards the flower. First of all, it should be large, colorful. Due to their color, see, in the wind pollinated flower and in water pollinated flower, the flower should be, their flowers are smaller and they are colorless. Okay, colorless as well as the nectarless. But here in the animals which are acting as in pollinating agent, there the flower should be larger one, colorful, and they should give a good smell, that is the fragrance, so that they can attract towards them. And it should be rich in nectar, because the flies and all, why they are attracting towards the flower means for the purpose of collecting the nectar. So it should be rich in nectar. So in the last hydrophily, in anemophily, what you had studied, what are the adaptation of flower means the flower should be small, nectarless, odorless, then the flower should be colorless. Okay, but here in these things, the flower should be larger one, colorful, fragrant, rich in nectar. Okay, and a small numbers of flower should be present in a clusters of an inflorescence. Yesterday what I showed in aquatic plants, the flower should be in a clusters like this. Okay, of an inflorescence. So animals are attracted due to their color, due to their fragrance, due to their what we call nectar. The animals are going to attract towards them. So here the flowers, animals are taking the pollen grains and transferring to the stigma. In return, what flowers are going to give to the animals? They are going to give some rewards. What are that rewards means? So here that rewards nectar and pollen grains. These are the rewards for animals. See here, from the flower, for example, this is the bee. Okay, this is the bee, any bee you take. So, flower is for flower, they are going to pollinate. In return, what flower is going to give to the animals? They are going to give the nectar and pollen grains. So, this is the reward. Reward means that is a gift for the animals. For what purpose? For pollinating the flowers. So this reward, usually this reward we can say floral reward, because it's getting from the flower to whom, to the animals. So for what we call, when animal visit to the flower, at that time they used to collect the nectar. At that time, what happens means, if it is a male flower, all the pollen grains are going to stick on their body. Okay, they collect the nectar like that only, by keeping the pollen grains on the body, like that only they will fly away. When they are going to sit on the another flower of the another plant or on the same plant, that pollen grains are going to shed on that particular stigma. So in this way they are going to, what? It brings about the pollination. In this way they are going to pollinate the flowers. The next, here in some flower species of flower, here the insects, that is some of the insects are going to lay the eggs. Okay, how means? I will explain here. See here, in some species, floral rewards. In some species, floral rewards means, what is the gift? which is going to give by the flower to the animal. So it's providing a safe place. It provides a safe place to lay the eggs. To lay eggs. Okay, how it's one of the example is there. An example is that of the tallest flower. Among one of the tallest flower, which is the tallest flower over here. So the name of that tallest flower, Amorphophallus. This is the name of one of the tallest plant. Sorry, not a plant, only flower. Here, the height of the flower is 6 feet. Only of the flower, how much it is? That it is the 6 feet. So a similar relationship occurs here also. In this flower also, the insects are going to lay the eggs. See here how it's this is the flower, ovary, style, stigma. Okay, female flower. When insect comes and releases the pollen grains, due to which this flower is undergoing into the pollination. Okay, this flower is receiving some of the pollen grain, that we are calling it as the pollination. So what happens in return? What reward is going to give to that particular animal? What is the return gift to the animal? So here this flower is providing this insect to lay the eggs inside the ovary. That particular animal or the insect, not all animals can lay eggs inside the ovary. This especially the insect bees and wasp. Okay, one more example is that also I will explain. Only insects can lay the eggs because the flower will be so much small. So here now the insects are going to lay the eggs inside the ovary. It will not affect any fertilization, any seed development, any fruit development. After that, the insects will, when the eggs are going to hatch, the insects are going to fly away. Their eggs will be so small so that they are going to lay inside the ovary of the water of the flower. Then one more example is there. Such a similar relationship you can see between one more plant and the insect, that is the yucca plant, and between the moth. See here. That it is a similar relationship occurs. A similar relationship exists between a species of moth, this is the insect, moth is the insect, moth, and the plant. What is the name of that plant? The name of plant is yucca plant. Okay, same thing. Yucca plant is getting pollen grains by the moth. In return, the flowers of the yucca plant are going to provide a space for laying the eggs. So here, yucca plant, both species, that is the moth and the plant, cannot complete their life cycle without each other. See here, the yucca plant and the species, they cannot complete their life cycle without each other. How means, this is the flower of yucca plant. Okay, and here this is the moth. Moth flower of yucca plant. If this yucca plant is not getting pollen grains, means whether it will undergo fertilization? No. If it is not getting male gametes, means whether it will undergo fertilization? No. Okay. If moth is specifically laying the eggs inside the ovary of what? Of the yucca plant. If there is no yucca flowers or there is no yucca plant, means moth cannot complete their life cycle. They are specified. They know the space where, means that is in the ovary of yucca plant. Okay, that is the thing they are telling. They cannot complete their life cycle. If moth is not there, it is not going to fertilize. If yucca plant is not there, moth is not going to lay the eggs. Like that. That in that way, they are going to dependent on each other for completing their life cycle. So moth here, this moth is going to deposit the eggs. Deposits eggs inside the locules. That is the chamber, ovarian cavity, what we call. Okay, locules of ovary. So for depositing the egg or for laying the eggs, here the locule is the safest place for whom? For the moth. In return, this moth or the flower of the yucca plant is pollinated by moth. Okay, in this way they are dependent on each other. The next, this is about what? About pollination by animals. So these two examples are very important. The next topic about this in this chapter, that is the outbreeding devices. So let's see about that outbreeding devices. Next, outbreeding devices. See here, majority of flowering plants produces hermaphrodite flowers. Majority of flowering plants produces hermaphrodite flowers. What do you mean by hermaphrodite flowers? That is bisexual flowers, where male and female reproductive structures present in same flower. That type of flower is known as the hermaphrodite or bisexual or else monoecious. Don't be in confusion. Monoecious, bisexual and hermaphrodite. These three are the same thing. Okay. In where the male and the female reproductive structures are present in a single flower, that flowers we can say it as the hermaphrodite flower. So majority of the flowering plants, in majority of flowering plants, the flowers will be hermaphrodite, bisexual, or what we call that is the monoecious. So what happens means, the pollen grains likely to come on the stigma of the same flower. Because hermaphrodite means here in the flower there will be presence of male reproductive structure as well as the female reproductive structure. Okay, majority of the flowering plants are like this only. So that's why here they lie close to each other. Yes, sir. So they are going to release the pollen grain. That pollen grains are going to sit on the stigma of the same flower. So that means here always there will be self-pollination is going to take place. What is going to take place? That is the self-pollination is going to take place. If like this only continued self-pollination takes place means their inbreeding depression may take place. What do you mean by inbreeding depression? I will tell here. Continued self-pollination results into inbreeding depression. Inbreeding depression means here within the same flower. See, during one generation, self-pollination takes place. During second generation, self-pollination takes place. Third generation also, self-pollination takes place. Like this only made for many generations. There is no any other pollen grain is going to come and pollinate this stigma. Why? Because near to that stigma there is a presence of anther. There is no need of any other pollen grain to come and release the pollen grain or transfer the pollen grain. So like that self-pollination is going to take place where in the bisexual or hermaphrodite flowering plant. So what happens means, one example I will tell. This flower is small. This is one character of the flower. One more character, that it is nectarless. Okay, small, this is a good character, but nectarless, this is one of the not a good character. Okay, if like this only for many generations self-pollination takes place, these characters will lie in that particular plant. Okay, so it may be disadvantages for that particular flowering plants. If nectarless or if it is smaller plant, small flower means there will be small fruit is going to give that particular plant. Small fruit is not a what we call not a desirable character. Okay, it is one of the undesirable character we can say. So that characters are going to depress or that characters are going to what we call that characters will become recessive. Recessive means they are not going to express their characters. If genes are present also, they are not going to express them. So that things are going to take place. So that particular where the characters are going to repressed. They are not going to show off their characters. So that is known as the inbreeding depression. When the inbreeding depression is going to take place? When there is a continued self-pollination. So here what to do to encourage cross-pollination. We don't want self-pollination in a continued generation. We want what? Cross-pollination. Cross-pollination will has some advantages. Okay, such as it will result in variations. Okay, variation means changes because some other flower pollen grains are going to pollinate the some other flower. Okay, of the same plant or of the different plant, due to which there will be genes are going to changes. There will be recombination of genes. If recombination of genes are going to take place, then there will be changes in the genes is going to take place. Changes in the genes will result in the variation. Okay, it will change the characters also. The small character will become larger one and nectarless will become rich in nectar. Okay, so we have to encourage the cross pollination. So what are the devices to encourage the cross pollination? Here you see devices to encourage cross pollination. To overcome from that problem of inbreeding depression, where the characters are going to depress, we have to go for cross pollination. How to encourage this cross pollination? Here there are some important factors are there in about that. First one is the declining or unisexuality. Declining or unisexuality. See here, in questions what they will ask, what are the adaptations for to encourage the cross pollination? Like that also they will ask in 1 marks, what do you mean by declining, what do you mean by unisexuality of flowering plants? Like that also they may ask. Declining or unisexuality means the presence of unisexual flowers. See, if there is an unisexual flowers, see here, presence of unisexual flowers. In flowering plants, majority of them are bisexual. If rarely also unisexual flower is there, for example, stigma in one flower, anther in another flower. This may result in what? Cross pollination. Okay, so this is known as the declining. Presence of unisexual flowers in the flowers, okay, that it is known as the declining or unisexuality. This is one thing in case where the cross pollination has to be takes place. What are the examples? Means palms, morus, examples of this declining: palms, morus, and one more example that it is casuarina, etc. These are the plants which are showing the decline or unisexuality. They are also flowering plant, but their flowers are unisexual flower, which will encourage the cross pollination. Second one, that is the self-sterility. Second factor or second adaptation, self-sterility. What do you mean by self-sterility? Means here the plants like abutilon and passiflora, plants like abutilon and passiflora, the pollen from the anther fails to germinate on the stigma. Okay, pollens from the anther fails to germinate on stigma. Okay, see here why this is going to fail to germinate the stigma of the same flower. See here what happens with here this is stigma and this flower is bisexual flower, not a unisexual. Stigma and this is anther. Anthers are going to release the pollen grains due to some due to some absence of chemical substance on the stigma, or due to some absence of a lack of chemicals on the stigma, this pollen grain fails to germinate. That stigma will not accept that particular pollen grain, or otherwise when pollen grains comes and sit on the stigma, it fails to germinate. Germinate means there will be no pollen tube is going to take place. In that case, what happens means the pollen grain will shed out or fall down. Okay. what happens? The pollen grain will fall down. If it is going to fall down, some other pollen grain from some other flower comes and germinates on the stigma. So from other flowers, what it is? That is the cross pollination. Okay. So here, what it means? That means that is the self sterility. Okay. Unable to fertilize or unable to germinate the pollen on the stigma of the same flower. Okay, due to some lack of chemical substances. So this is known as the self-sterility. In that case, cross-pollination is the only option. The next, third one, that it is the dichogamy. What do you mean by dichogamy? Let's see here. The third device. It is dichogamy. What do you mean by dichogamy over here means? See, pollen grains and stigma and the stigma of the flower mature at different times. What happens here means, see, this is the stigma and this is the anther. In the same flower, this is the flower. In the same flower, what happens means, here stigma is mature. Yes, sir. Stigma is ready to receive the pollen grain. Stigma is mature. But the anther is not mature. Anther is not mature, or else they are not going to release any pollen grain. Otherwise, anther is not matured means what happens means no pollen grains are going to release. If there is no pollen grains, then the stigma will receive the pollen grain from some other flower. Yes, this is one condition. One more condition. Here, this is stigma and this is anther. Here the anther is matured and it starts to release the pollen grain, but the stigma is not matured. But anther is mature. If it is mature, then it starts to release the pollen grain. Here the stigma will not accept that pollen grain, or if pollen grain comes and sits over here also, that pollen grains will fall down. They are not going to accept it. So in that case, what happens? Pollen grains will pollinate to the stigma of any other flower. Okay. So this is these are the two conditions, and all these things are taking place to avoid self-pollination. In this case, what happens means a cross-pollination is going to take place. Okay, so that particular process is known as the, or particular device is known as the dichogamy. Okay, where the pollen grains and stigma of the flower mature at different time. If it is maturing at same time, then the self-pollination will take place. If it is maturing at different time, then there will be no self-pollination is going to take place. The next here, the last device, still two more devices there. That is, next is the helicogamet. Let's see. Next, fourth device, helicogamet. Here, what do you mean by helicogamet? Means it is a flower with some mechanical barriers. It is a flower with some mechanical barriers. Some mechanical barriers on stigmatic surface. On stigmatic surface. On stigmatic surface to avoid self-pollination. So, here on the stigma, one example, hood covering on the stigma, hood covering on the stigma of iris plant. Iris plant. Okay, see here what happens. This is the stigma. The stigma has some, on the surface of the stigma there will be presence of certain chemical substances due to which they are going to accept the pollen grain. What happens in some cases, in some plants, in some flowering plants, on the surface of the stigma, some covering takes place. Okay, some covering is going to take place, so that will reject the pollen grain. In that case also, cross pollination is going to take place. Okay, so that process, that device, we can call it as the helicogamet, where in some flowers some mechanical barriers they are telling. What is that mechanical barrier? So that is some covering is going to occur, due to which it fails to accept the pollen grains. In that case, these flowers are not going to self-pollinated, but it is going to cross-pollinated. If some other pollen grain of some other plant will come, means it will accept. Okay. Then next, the last is the heterostyle. Next, heterostyle. Fifth one, heterostyle. Okay, here flower in some plants have different length of flowers of some plants have different length of stamens and stylus. Such as long stamens and short stylus. Long stamens and short styles. In that case, what happens means, see here, and in some case it will be long styles and short styles. See here, two cases are there where long styles means like this. Long styles and short styles. Okay, in this case, what happens? Pollen grains are going to release like this. They will not reach up to the higher height. Okay, in that case also cross pollination may take place. One more condition: anthers will be, stamens will be longer one, and the styles will be the shorter one. Totally merged in the flower. The pollen grains which are going to release over here, they will not reach up to the stigma. So these pollen grains will pollinate to some other flower. In that case also cross pollination will take place. So here, what are the examples over here in this heterostyle means? Primula jasminium. Example, Primula jasminum, and oxalis. Okay, these are some example of this device. So this is about what? About the outbreeding devices. The next here, see, unisexual flowers I told in the first thing, that is decline of unisexuality. There you can mention the example castor and maize, which are monoecious. Castor and maize, which are monoecious, which will prevent the self-pollination and it will encourage the cross-pollination. Then one more point you mentioned, write it there. In papaya, sorry, in several species such as papaya, male and female flowers are present on different plants. Male and female flowers are present on different plants. So this prevents both autogamy and geitonogamy. This prevents both autogamy and geitonogamy. So this is about the devices. The next, in the next class, we will talk about the pollen pistil interaction and artificial hybridization. Okay, thank you.